Well, a very good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Ashwin Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking at this hour. Nifty falls 1% in this financial year, underperforming peers in Asia. It is the worst performing index, losing 21%. PSU Bank Index gains for the third consecutive year. The Indian rupee depreciates 8% against the US dollar in the financial year. The Indian currency weathered net outflows of more than $7 billion. At the end of FY23, $1 US costs more than 82 rupees. The government unveils a new foreign trade policy aiming to nearly treble exports from current levels to $2 trillion by 2030. Extends special benefits for e-commerce by doubling the value of exports through courier services. Also aims to provide a fillip to export of drones, cryogenic tanks and certain chemicals. India's current account deficit narrows to 2.2% of GDP in the third quarter. Narrowing trade deficit and a surge in exports and remittances help bridge the gap. At least 36 people are dead in a temple in Indore after a stepwell collapse. After a dozen people have been rescued so far as search operations continue. A case has been registered against the President and Secretary of Temple Administration. Donald Trump indicted by a New York jury for his role in paying hush money to a porn star ahead of his 2016 presidential campaign. Becomes the first ex-president in America's history to face criminal prosecution. The charges, however, have not been made public. Trump, who could surrender next week, has called the move a witch hunt. Italy's data protection agency opens a probe into ChatGPT, accuses the Microsoft-funded company of breaching data collection rules and failing to check the age of its users. The app is supposed to be reserved for people aged 13 and above. Billionaire Richard Branson's satellite launching company is ceasing operations for the foreseeable future. Virgin Orbit fails to secure fresh funding and announces plans to lay off nearly all its workforce. India Inc. is likely to hand out lower salary hikes this year compared to 2022 as per Deloitte's survey. Average increments likely to drop to 9.1%, with only 1 in 3 companies planning to give double-digit increments. And the Indian Premier League gets underway for its 16th edition. A few new rules, including an impact player, will be implemented this year. And for the first time, 2 different broadcasters for cricket's showpiece event, streaming on Jio Cinema and TV broadcast on Star Sports. Well, the financial year has drawn to a close. The Nifty has lost 1% in FY23, making it one of the worst performers in Asia. On the last day of financial year, however, we saw a sharp rally. Sensex gained over 1,000 points. The Nifty rallied by about 300. All sectoral indices ended the week with gains led by financial stocks. Nigel D'Souza is joining us now with a wrap of the market action this financial year.
Let's focus first on the challenges that were upon us. One is interest rate hikes globally. They were expected to come about, pull out some liquidity from the system. Valuations in India were a bit of a concern. As Prashant said, they're trading at around 17.5 times. At one point of time, the Indian markets were trading at 21, 22 times odd. China reopened, took some part of the flows, and also China doing well. Well, Indian markets did underperform out there. And a couple of other reasons. The FIs, they've sold our markets for majority of the fiscal towards the end of the year. The US banking crisis, well, that's what put the global markets in a bit of a tizzy. Focusing on India, the Dow Jones as well as China. China has been a relative outperformer because of the way it rallied from November onwards. But focusing on the Indian markets, you'll say it was down only around 0.5%. The pain really was in the small cap index. That was down more than 10%, while the Nifty Bank did reasonably well. But there were plenty of stocks that were moving around. And the reason that the Nifty was more or less flattish is because from the Nifty itself, from the 50 stocks, you had big movers on either side. So let's get some of those up for you on the screen. On the Nifty, you had ITC that was up more than 50%. Remember, that's a big mover in there. Mahindra and Mahindra, one-way ride. It was up close to around 40%. NTPC, HUL, as well as Britannia. So those are the big winners from the Nifty pack. On the losing end, though, you got the stock wrong, well, you paid for it big time. And the Nifty IT index had its worst year since FY 2009. It was down more than 20%, a big underperformer. And that's why Wipro, you have Infosys in there, and Tech Mahindra as well. Big losses out there. Besides that, Divi's, Hindalco, Bajaj Finserv, all of them were under some pressure. But you got the stock wrong from the broader markets and you paid for it. Low risk, Gland Pharma 50 to 60% lower. They were market darlings at one point of time. Vodafone Idea, you felt maybe it can't fall more. Well, it fell more than 40% actually, nearly 40%. Biocon as well as Godrej Properties. But let's brighten up the screen, and before we wind up, let's leave you with some of the big gainers. Highly traded stocks, TVS Motors was expensive, is expensive. It's up close to around 70%. You had Bank of India, you have Tube Investments, CG Power, MMFSL. But you'd be really happy if you're looking at your portfolio and you had these stocks that should come up for you on the screen. They have doubled your money in the last 1 year. Apart Industries, Mascon Dock, Finolex Cables, Karur Vysya Bank, RVNL, as well as BLS. So if you had them, it was a good year. But otherwise, more or less a flattish year for the Indian markets, but a stock pickers market for sure.
Well, speaking of the markets, here's some action from the money markets. The Indian rupee depreciated 8% against the US dollar in this financial year. The currency weathered net outflows of more than $7 billion. At the end of FY23, $1 US costs more than 82 rupees. Lata Venkatesh is joining us now with a wrap of the money market action.
The rupee actually started strong at about 75.5 on 1st April 2022, but then went on to weaken, went to its lowest level of 83.28 in October, and that was because that was the period the dollar strengthened. The dollar index strengthened from about less than 100 in the start of the year to about 114 in end September. The rupee actually weathered a lot, you know. It weathered FPI outflows of net of $7.5 billion and a gross outflow of almost $23 billion. It also weathered a high current account deficit in the second quarter, where the CAD touched 4.4% of GDP, highest since 2013. The Reserve Bank did appear to help the rupee, defended the rupee at around 80, but then it let go when current account deficit worsened. Now, actually, lately the rupee has been appreciating in the last quarter because the current account deficit has turned a surplus in the fourth quarter. It looks like the appreciation bias is likely to continue in FY24. One, because commodities and crude prices seem to be subdued, and the current account looks under control because of good service exports.
Right, Lata. Thanks a lot for that. Now, next week, the RBI's Monetary Policy Committee will meet to decide on interest rates. CNBC-TV18 Citizens Monetary Committee is split on what the committee should do, with 3 people voting for a 25 basis point hike and 2 members voting for a pause.
Get ready to tell us what you expect the MPC to do on the repo rate. Samiran Chakrabarti, you go first.
We think it's a 25 basis point hike in repo.
Okay.
We think it's a pause, but the RBI may do a balancing act.
Okay, pause. We have to go only with that. Yes. Shajid?
We think a 25 basis point hike.
Okay, and Sonal?
Pause.
Okay. Dr. Sen, the team is equally divided. Yours is the casting vote, sir.
Well, if I were voting myself, I would say pause. If I'm predicting what MPC is going to do, I'll say 25 basis points.
Okay, so it's a 25 basis hike. The hikes win. Let's look at the stance. Shamiran?
We think a change of stance, probably to neutral.
Neutral.
No change in stance.
Change to neutral.
No change in stance.
No change in stance. Okay. No change in stance from Shaumios. Sajid?
Something intermediate between what their current stance is and neutral.
Okay, but you're not voting neutral?
No.
Okay, not neutral. So I would say retain with tweaks. Sonal?
Retain stance.
Dr. Saib?
For precisely the same reasons Sonal mentioned, I would say neutral, because I think they have to be a little less decisive than retaining stance would imply.
Well, in a bid to boost exports, the government has announced a new foreign trade policy setting an ambitious target for exports by 2030. For context, the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has projected India's exports in FY23 to touch $750 billion. Now, this is below the $900 billion mark that was set as a target in 2020 in the last trade policy. The government has repeatedly extended this target, citing pandemic-related disruptions for missing the deadlines. Now, the new trade policy aims to nearly treble the exports from current levels to $2 trillion by 2030. Now, the new foreign trade policy hopes to give a fillip to emerging industries like e-commerce, drones, chemicals, among others. Abhimanyu Sharma is joining us now with the highlights of the new foreign trade policy. Abhimanyu.
The new foreign trade policy will have no end date. It will be updated as per the requirement of the situation. Also, it is a move from the regime of incentives towards remission, apart from the fact that several other salient features of the policy are directed towards easing business for exporters. Also, an amnesty scheme for one-time settlement of default and export obligation by advance authorization and EPCG authorization holders has also been promised as per the scheme. The application fees is to be cut for MSMEs for advance authorization and EPCG schemes. Faridabad, Moradabad, Mirzapur and Varanasi have been declared as towns of export excellence in addition to the existing 39 towns. Battery EVs will be eligible for reduced export obligation requirement under the EPCG scheme. More importantly, international trade settlement in rupee will be allowed, not just with countries with which India has a good bilateral trade relation, but also with nations which find it difficult to get dollars to pay for their respective imports. So clearly it will be a big fillip for rupee trade, even as the government is trying to pitch the rupee as a global currency. While battery EVs will be eligible for reduced export obligation requirement under the EPCG scheme, the threshold will also be decreased for export performance star ratings for exporters for better branding. Clearly, exporters for now have been welcoming this new policy, though many exporters have said, FIO has told CNBC-TV18 that they do want some extension to the old policy, since they do not want several exporters to face losses due to a sudden change in policy, and they want some degree of interim extension to the old policy to ensure that there is no break in business for various exporters.
इस वर्ष 750 तो पार हुआ, शायद 760 भी पार होगा. $1 trillion गुड्स और $1 trillion एक्सपोर्ट्स हम 2030 तक करेंगे. उस समय एग्रीगेट इस वर्ष का 772 बिलियन एक्सपेक्टेशन थी, और मेरा मानना है हम लगभग उस लेवल तक पहुंच जाएंगे.
The kind of focus which the new foreign trade policy has brought on the new sectors and increasing their reliance on digitization to address the transaction cost and time issues. This will definitely help us to achieve the target of $2 trillion, and we are confident that probably we may do it a year or two before also. We are very clear that the days of subsidies are over now for exports.
Well, India's current account deficit has narrowed to 2.2% of the GDP in the third quarter of FY23. The current account deficit in the October to December quarter stood at over $18 billion as compared to nearly $31 billion in the previous quarter. The decline came on the back of a 24.5% increase in services exports on a year-on-year basis. Private transfer receipts, mainly representing remittances by Indians employed overseas, amounted to nearly $31 billion, also helping to bridge the gap. The output of 8 infrastructure sectors expanded at 6% in February. All sectors except crude witnessed positive growth. However, February growth is lower than the 7.8% growth seen in the month of Jan. India Inc. is likely to hand out lower salary hikes this year compared to 2022 as per Deloitte's survey. Average increments likely to drop to 9.1%, with only 1 in every 3 organizations planning to give double-digit increments. Well, market regulator SEBI has announced a slew of measures to boost ESG-based investing in India through mutual funds. The fund houses have been given the freedom to launch more than one ESG scheme from now. Shivani Bajaj is joining us now to explain the impact this can have. Shivani.
With a total of 10 ESG funds in the market, the Indian mutual fund industry is still in early stages of ESG investing vis-a-vis its global peers. The 10 funds currently operational in India manage a total AUM of 10,000 crore as on March 29, 2023. Most of these schemes track the Nifty 100 ESG TRI, which has a total of 89 companies listed on it, a far lower number than general indices. Nifty 100 ESG Index is designed to reflect the performance of companies within Nifty 100 Index based on environmental, social and governance (ESG) risk scores. The average number of stocks in portfolios of these ESG schemes is 38 to 52, compared to a 70 to 100 in a diversified equity portfolio. Let's now look at the returns given by these categories. In the last 1 year, the category has offered an average return of minus 5.09%. In the 3-year time frame, the category has offered 21.79%, and in 5 years, the returns stand at 11.01%. The decline in return can be attributed to the energy crisis and the global hit on ESG framework after the Russia-Ukraine war. In India, the top constituents by weightage of the ESG index are companies like Infosys, Tata Consultancy Services, HDFC, HCL Technologies, ICICI Bank and Bharti Airtel. Financial services with 29.37%, information technology with 23% and automobile and auto components with 10.76% represent the biggest sectors on the index. When it comes to the top performers in the last 3 years, Quantum India ESG Fund with 26.98% and SBI Magnum Equity ESG Fund with 24.42% returns have topped the return charts.
And while it's a stressful time for mango merchants, the mango crop in the country has been damaged up to 20% due to untimely rains, hailstorm and strong winds, according to the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Meanwhile, the Indian Met Department has also predicted rainfall over several parts of India till Saturday. Hero MotoCorp, India's biggest two-wheeler company, has appointed Niranjan Gupta as its new CEO effective from the 1st of May. Pawan Munjal, company's current CEO, will remain with the company as an executive chairman and full-time director on the board. Well, here's the big... Well, in national headlines, at least 36 people have been killed after a roof of a stepwell at a temple in Indore collapsed yesterday. Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan has ordered a magisterial probe into the incident. A case has been registered against the President and the Secretary of Temple Administration, even as search operations continue. Prime Minister Modi has announced an ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees for the PM National Relief Fund. A Delhi court rejected former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia's bail plea in connection to the liquor policy case. Sisodia said that he will challenge the order in a higher court. The AAP leader is currently in judicial custody and will be produced in court on 3rd of April. The Gujarat High Court dismissed Chief Information Commissioner's 2016 order to provide information about PM's MA degree to Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. The court also imposed a fine of 25,000 rupees, calling it an irresponsible, childish curiosity. Well, some of India's largest pharma companies are spearheaded by women, and yet reports suggest that women make up for just about 11% of the pharmaceutical industry, something the industry is now actively trying to change. Cipla, for instance, is targeting 20% gender diversity by 2024. And as a part of our ongoing campaign, Future Female Forward, a women's collective, CNBC-TV18 Shilpa Rani Petra reports from Cipla's Buddy plant that a big driver of that change will be breaking stereotypes and getting rid of unconscious bias. Take a look.
Pharma giant Cipla's plant in Baddi in Himachal Pradesh, and this plant is proving to be a game changer for the people of this region, especially the women. Surrounded by quaint villages and towns, most people in this region are landowners. They prefer agriculture or working in local banks and schools. In such a socio-economic setup, working day-long jobs, especially that involves travel, especially for women, has never been encouraged. But that is now changing. 21-year-old Suman Lata is the first woman from her village Malpur in Himachal Pradesh's Baddi Tehsil to work for a large corporate house. The job has meant that she has been financially independent for over a year and become a key contributor to her family's income. She's part of Cipla's NEEV program, which allows students to study pharmacy at BITS Pilani while working at the company.
जब लोग स्टार्टिंग में आए थे हम लोग तो यहाँ पे कोई भी फीमेल ऑपरेटर नहीं थी, फीमेल इंजीनियर नहीं थी, कि बड़ा अजीब लग रहा था कि हाँ मैं लड़की हूँ तो मैं चला पाऊंगी ये मशीन। यही नहीं होता कि लड़कियाँ सिर्फ डॉक्यूमेंट्स का ही कर सकती हैं, मशीन्स कर सकती हैं वो हैंडल। मैंने भी इवन स्टार्टिंग में बोला था कि मेरे से नहीं हो पाएगा, बट आज मैं बोल रही हूँ कि नहीं, ये सब कर सकते हैं।
The financial independence from such jobs goes beyond helping women run their households. It has made dreams for many women a reality. Renuka Gautam, for instance, has been able to buy herself a car and land.
As a financially independent, I saved my money and I purchased the land for particular or my own savings. Then I bought also the Fortuner car. This is a very valuable for me, so that I feel very proud to say, yes, I have purchased all those things.
Cipla's Baddi plant has 13 packaging lines operated entirely by women. So too the packaging lines at its Sikkim and Goa plants. The company says this has become possible because it has also given these women the option to study while they work.
We have curated a lot of educational diploma as well as now graduation programs for both women and men. But that's the opportunity that women continue to pursue their education while they're working. That in itself, encourages women to come forward and take up a job at Cipla.
Despite some of India's largest pharma companies being headed by women, various reports suggest that women make up just about 11% of the pharmaceutical industry. But companies like Cipla have been working to improve this ratio, not just at the shop floor level, but all the way to the top.
Even in the pharma industry, for example, field force, traditionally stereotyped to be an area where you often find men. And even a lot of women have actually very successfully broken that stereotype and actually risen the levels. So more and more pharma companies are actually doing that. It's a slow process, it's a journey.
Women-friendly policies are helping. Case in point, Cipla's Flexi Field Days policy, which gives female sales executives a better chance to balance their home and work life. And its Women at Cipla platform that allows female employees to connect with their peers, share ideas, and network beyond work. But women empowerment exercises are incomplete without support from male colleagues. And to this end, Cipla has been conducting workshops for its mid-level and senior leaders to get rid of unconscious bias. Creating an inclusive and equitable work environment for all employees, the company believes, is the best way to create a future that puts women employees first. In Baddi, Shilpa Ranipeta.
Well, an inspiring story that. But before we wrap, the head of Reliance Foundation, Neeta Ambani, inaugurated a multidisciplinary culture centre in Mumbai today. The Neeta Mukesh Ambani Cultural Centre will offer free access for children, students, senior citizens and the differently abled. The centre is built to home 3 performing arts spaces and has a dedicated 4-story art house for visual arts. Further, the inauguration eve of the NMACC at the Geo World Centre in Mumbai saw many international celebrities and artists in attendance. These included the likes of Priyanka Chopra, Tom Holland, Zendaya, among others. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue right here on CNBC-TV18.